Arsto's philosophy is very unique. He's a contemporary, as far as I know, he's probably still alive, born in 1924. Obviously, he's getting on up there in years, if he is still alive. All right. But last I know, I don't have an expiration date on this guy. So, okay, he claims that the art world has had shifts in theories like Kuhn's paradigm shift. Remember Kuhn? Remember us talking about having paradigm shifts in the philosophy of science realm? That, over time things just shift and everything gets looked at from a totally different perspective. Well, that's really what he's talking about. And actually, he wrote his it came out about 2 weeks after Kuhn published his work that talked about these paradigm shifts. So, was there an influence there? One might assume that there was some influence there. Okay? But he claims that the art world, as he calls it, all one word, all right? Art world, we'll put it on here in one word, has had shifts like this. An artifact becomes art through our identification of it as a work of art. Now, what theory does that sound like that we've already discussed? Does it sound like expression theory? It is seen as art because it's through our identification of it as a work of art. It's kind of circular reasoning, isn't it? What does that sound like? Does that sound like institutional theory of art, maybe? I think it sounds a little bit like institutional theory of art. I'm going to help you out today. Okay. I'm going to help you out. It sounds a little to me like institutional theory of art. I will leave that up to your interpretation. Okay. In the sense of, because you already have a community, and within that community, they're judging, and it's within that this thing gets determined. Oh, yes, this is art. Okay, yeah, it's art. All right. It rejects the imitation theory. Now, Plato's idea that we talked about just a few minutes ago, in his time, see, obviously, he's really thinking in terms of imitation, because Plato rejects all of it based on that theory that art is imitation of reality somehow. Okay, so he rejects that idea of art and that theory is not relevant for today. Okay, and he adopts a reality theory of art and he uses an example in the book. Okay, if I made a really, really good counterfeit dollar bill, let's just say that I did. Okay, I would never do that for all public notice here. I would never do that because that would be really stupid, and going to jail is just not an option. But what's that? $100 bills. $100. Yeah. What did I say? Dollar bills. There you go. Yeah, obviously, I don't know if anybody counterfeits dollar bills or not, but I guess that must be a laborious work. You have to crank out a whole bunch of them just to make a day's wage, right? All right. So we'll just stay with that. I counterfeited a dollar bill, and boy, let's say it was a good counterfeit dollar bill. And then I put not legal tender on the top of it. Now, it has gone from being useful, right? It's no longer useful as even a fake dollar bill. I'm not claiming it to be the same as that reality of a dollar bill, am I? I'm not claiming that anymore. And I have defaced that counterfeit by putting not legal tender. Okay? So what is it now? Could it be considered artwork?
Because it's an imitation of the dollar bill?
Yeah, because it's an imitation. I want you to appreciate how good I could copy and mimic a dollar bill, a U.S. dollar bill, without getting in trouble. So I put not legal tender on it. I put something to indicate this is not real. I let you know it's not a real dollar bill. That it doesn't match this reality. Okay? So now, what has it become? It's become a third option. It's not real. It's not this reality. It's not the imitation of this reality. So it's become a kind of third reality, hasn't it? It's something of its own. It's not a counterfeit and it's not real. So what is it? Well, if you sell it in big bags to children, it's called play, monopoly money or play money, right? But that's not what we're talking about. You wouldn't go to that much trouble over play money. So it's become something artistic because I have done this, but yet I am not portraying it as a fake or as trying to pass it off as this reality. And that's the kind of thing that he's talking about. He's adopting this reality theory of art, and that's the only way that really it can incorporate the Impressionist art and some of these other kinds of aesthetic things that are relatively new to the past century. Prior to, in centuries prior, you've had mostly that imitation type thing. People do portraits, people do, whatever, scenery, people do still life or whatever, but it was how skilled they were in representing or sculpture, making it look very much like something else. There's that imitation kind of theory that was going on, and obviously Plato is attuned to that. But what he's saying, Danto is saying that we have had a paradigm shift in order to be able to adapt, just like in Dutton's signatures, he had to make that exception. Well, except for certain kinds of art and music. Those kind of fit outside of this other, the imitation was one of his 7 signatures. So he's already gone outside of that, see, with his signatures. He's already acknowledged an exception to the rule. Well, see, with Danto, with his view, that incorporates anything that we want to bring in and as a community call it art. It's okay. It doesn't have to represent, it doesn't have to imitate. It is just something beautiful because it's beautiful or whatever. All right? It's something that is valued as artwork in spite of the fact that it doesn't really directly represent, or I should say not represent, but I should say it doesn't directly imitate anything else that's recognizable. Okay? So you see the difference there? Does that make sense? So he's kind of going, he's bringing a whole new spin on all this. But he picks up off of Kuhn, apparently. It seems that he has gotten some ideas from Kuhn before he wrote this, but I don't...
Is that like artwork on fictional stuff?
What's that?
Is that like artwork that's based on fictional stuff?
Well, even you're talking about like writings or literary things, that would still be somewhat imitational. What's that?
Just paintings or whatever.
Well, paintings that are not necessarily directly representing something else in life, you could have
animals that don't exist, or places that don't exist, or something like that, or plants that don't exist.
Maybe. I mean, you've got the Pegasus is a good example of a mythical creature that.
But you've seen a horse.
You've seen a horse. You've seen wings, and you put them together. So even though it doesn't really exist, you still have some sort of corresponding. Does the Pegasus look like a horse? Yeah. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe. I guess that's a possibility. We're more talking about the abstract stuff.
Okay.
I mean, that's more what ends up being the idea of this anyway, I should say.